the room feels heavier than it should. Not because of the silence, but because of what it holds, the echoes of someone who once existed here. A sweater draped across the chair, a cup still sitting on the table, a faint scent that time hasn't yet erased. You look at these remnants as if they still breathe. But deep down, something in you already knows. You are not mourning them. You are mourning the idea of them. We think heartbreak is about another person. We think we lose love the day they walk away, the day the messages stop, the day the laughter fades into memory. But that's not the truth. What we lose is the story we told ourselves, the dream we built in their presence, the meaning we wrapped around them like a shield against our own emptiness. The love we thought existed was never just about them. It was about who we became when we believed we were loved. It's strange how we confuse love with possession. We believe that love lives in someone else, that it can be taken, lost, or forgotten. We talk about falling out of love, as if love were something that can run dry, something that expires. But love itself never dies. What ends is the illusion, the fragile scaffolding built by our fears, expectations, and fantasies. We don't lose love, we lose the idea of what we thought love should look like. You remember the first moments, the excitement, the lightness, the sense of being seen. It felt pure, almost sacred. But if you look closely, beneath the surface, there was already an image forming in your mind. You weren't just loving the person in front of you. You were loving the reflection of what you hoped they could give you. A promise, safety, completion. You mistook that reflection for love itself, and that's where the illusion began. It's human nature to project meaning onto others, to build a world from their gestures, their smiles, their silence. But what happens when that world collapses? When the person leaves, the structure you built in your heart begins to crumble. It feels like death, not because love has vanished, but because your identity was intertwined with that illusion. You thought love meant being chosen. You thought love meant never being left. But real love is far less romantic, and infinitely more profound. Real love is not a possession, it's a perception. It's not about someone belonging to you, or you belonging to them. It's about the awareness that passes between two souls, an understanding that cannot be owned, only experienced. Yet we spend our lives trying to grasp it, to hold it, to make it permanent. We forget that love was never meant to stay still. It moves, it changes, it teaches. And sometimes it leaves, not to punish us, but to free us. There's a quiet pain that follows when the illusion dissolves. You start to notice the difference between the person you loved and the idea you loved. One was human, flawed, transient. The other was divine, a story your mind created to fill the gaps in your own soul. That's why it hurts so deeply when the story ends, because you're forced to face what remains when the dream fades. Yourself. And maybe that's why heartbreak feels so spiritual, because it's not about losing another person, it's about losing your own delusion. The part of you that believed love was something external, something fragile, something conditional. You are left standing in front of the ruins, realizing that love never left. Only your attachment to its form did. We romanticize the pain, write songs and poems about it, call it tragedy. But what if heartbreak is not the end of love, but its purification? What if the pain you feel is not loss, but awakening? Maybe love doesn't disappear, it simply sheds its disguise. The illusion burns away, and what's left is something quieter, truer, untouched by time. You begin to see that the ache in your chest is not emptiness, it's space. Space for truth, for self, for something larger than both. You start to understand that love was never trapped in their body, their eyes, or their presence. It was always inside you, waiting to be remembered. What you called love for them was love calling you back to yourself. And so, the silence in the room shifts. It's no longer heavy. The sweater is still there, the cup still untouched, but they no longer feel haunted. They simply are. You realize that nothing was taken from you. The love you thought you lost was never gone. It was only hidden beneath the stories you told. Maybe that's what it means to heal. Not to forget them, not to erase the memories, but to see clearly for the first time. To understand that love is not bound by presence or distance, by time or form. Love is the stillness that remains when all ideas fall away. Maybe love never leaves us. Maybe we just lose the idea we once used to find it. We often mistake love for attachment. What we call love is many times a collection of needs, projections, and fears that have found a temporary home in another person. It feels divine, but it's deeply psychological. When someone enters our life, we don't just see them. We see the reflection of what we've been unconsciously searching for. Their presence awakens the parts of us we've long buried. The child who craves safety, the dreamer who wants to be seen, the lost one who longs to feel whole again. And so we begin to build a story, one that feels like destiny, but is often a mirror of our own unfinished work. Carl Jung called this the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine energies that live within each of us. When we meet someone who embodies those qualities we've neglected or denied in ourselves, we feel magnetically drawn to them. That pull isn't just chemistry, it's projection. It's your psyche recognizing its missing pieces in another person. You fall in love, not because you found the one, but because you found a reflection of your unlived self. But projections are fragile. The moment reality begins to contradict the fantasy, the illusion starts to fracture. You see them as human, imperfect, inconsistent, incapable of fulfilling the picture your mind painted. And this is where the pain begins. You tell yourself that love is fading, that something has been lost, but what's really dying is the projection itself, the version of them you created to complete your own story. This is the root of most heartbreak, not the loss of love, but the loss of the illusion that love would save you from yourself. You thought their presence would silence the parts of you that felt unworthy, unseen, or alone. But when the fantasy breaks, all those hidden parts rise again, demanding your attention. You are forced to face the truth. The love you were chasing in them was always the love you withheld from yourself. Nietzsche once said, "We love life, not because we are used to living, but because we are used to loving." Love, in this sense, is not about possession. It's about becoming. But many people never reach that stage. They get stuck in the comfort of attachment, mistaking dependency for devotion. Real love demands courage. It asks you to look inward, to confront the insecurities you've projected outward. It's not easy, because letting go of projection means dismantling the image of yourself you built around another person. Alan Watts described love as an act of seeing, not through the lens of desire or fear, but through pure awareness. To truly love is to allow the other to exist as they are, without the weight of your expectations. But our conditioning resists this. We are taught that love is something to get, something that should make us feel complete. So we cling. We hold on to people as if they are lifeboats, terrified of the emptiness beneath us. Yet that emptiness is not our enemy. It is the space where genuine connection can begin. Attachment, however, disguises itself as love. It whispers, "I can't live without you." But what it really means is, "I can't face myself without you." We become dependent on the emotional highs and lows, mistaking chaos for passion and validation for intimacy. The relationship becomes a mirror, not of love, but of the wounds we refuse to see. And when that mirror shatters, we confuse the collapse of our illusion with the death of love itself. Viktor Frankl believed that meaning is born not from pleasure or attachment, but from suffering that awakens awareness. In love, this suffering appears when the illusion breaks apart, when the idea we worshipped no longer holds. The pain you feel is the psyche's invitation to evolve, to stop seeking love as escape, and to start understanding it as a path toward inner unity. Real love is not found in another person's eyes. It's found in the courage to face your own. Think of the relationships you've lost, the people who once felt like home and now feel like strangers. If you look closely, what you lost wasn't love, it was identification. You had woven their existence into your own identity. Without them, you feel undefined. But that void is sacred. It's the birthplace of truth. Because when the illusion falls away, what remains is the possibility of real love, one that doesn't depend on possession, on needing, or on control. In truth, love was never meant to be security. It was meant to be expansion, to show you where you are still asleep, where you are still afraid. It comes into your life to awaken something, not to fill you, but to break you open. And yet, most people resist this. They cling to the idea of love as safety, not as transformation. They want the comfort of being wanted, not the challenge of being seen. When you realize this, something inside you begins to shift. You stop seeing love as something that happens to you, and start recognizing it as something that moves through you. You stop searching for someone to give you what you lack, and start discovering the parts of yourself you abandoned. The pain that once felt like loss begins to feel like liberation. You begin to understand that love was never an external event. It was a mirror guiding you home to your own heart. And that's the paradox. You don't lose love when the relationship ends. You lose the illusion that love was ever dependent on another person. What dies is the fantasy, the dream that someone else could complete the story of who you are. What remains is pure, unconditional awareness, the essence of love itself. You didn't lose love. You lost the idea that love was something outside of you. You lost the story, the projection, the mirror. And in that loss, you found something deeper. A silence that no relationship can offer. A truth that no illusion can replace. A love that needs no object to exist. There comes a moment when all the noise fades, the calls, the messages, the memories. The mind still tries to recreate the feeling, but the heart knows something irreversible has happened. The idea of love you once held so tightly has died, and that death feels like a small apocalypse within you. You wake up one day and realize that the story you lived by, the belief that this person, this connection, this future, was your source of meaning, has dissolved into nothingness. What you are left with is not emptiness, but exposure. You stand bare before the truth, with no illusion left to shield you. This is the death of the idea. The part of you that once clung to fantasies of forever begins to crumble, and in its place, something quieter starts to breathe. It's uncomfortable at first. You feel disoriented, like walking without a map. But slowly, you start to understand that this loss, this collapse, is not punishment. It's a kind of purification. Every ending, no matter how painful, is an invitation to shed what is false. In the stillness that follows heartbreak, you begin to hear something new. The noise of attachment fades, and beneath it, there's a faint hum, a presence that has been there all along. You start to sense that what you thought was love lost was never lost at all. It was just buried beneath the weight of expectation and need. You see now that the death of the idea is not the death of love. It's the death of illusion. And only through that death can love return to its purest form, unbound, unowned, and infinite. Jung once wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. You realize now that the purpose of every relationship was never permanence, but transformation. The people who come into your life, the ones who love you, hurt you, or leave you, are all mirrors reflecting what still needs to awaken within you. They appear not to give you love, but to show you where you have forgotten to love yourself. In this light, loss begins to look different. You see that the person you lost didn't take love with them. They took your reflection. They took the image through which you once saw yourself. The grief you feel is not about them, but about losing that image. Without it, you must confront who you are without story, without title, without someone else's eyes defining your worth. That confrontation feels terrifying, but it is also the birth of freedom. Nietzsche said, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." This chaos, this heartbreak, is not destruction, but creation. It tears away the false, leaving space for something truer to emerge. The death of the idea is the birth of authenticity. You no longer love to escape loneliness. You love to express truth. You no longer cling to another for validation. You connect to share wholeness. Love stops being a contract and becomes an act of consciousness. Viktor Frankl believed that even suffering can hold meaning if it transforms our understanding of ourselves. Through heartbreak, you realize that love was never a possession to be lost, but a lesson to be lived. Pain becomes the teacher. Silence becomes the sanctuary. You begin to notice the small, sacred details of existence. The way light moves across your wall, the rhythm of your breath, the feeling of simply being. For the first time, you sense that love isn't gone. It has just changed form. It no longer exists between two people. It flows through everything. You start to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness is not an act of letting someone back in. It's a recognition that there is nothing left to hold on to. The story has served its purpose. It broke you open, revealed your shadows, forced you to see where you were clinging to illusion. In losing them, you met yourself. In the death of the idea, you found what was real. There's a kind of sacred silence that follows deep grief. It's not emptiness, it's presence. You begin to breathe differently, to exist differently. You no longer chase after meaning. You start to become meaning. You realize that love was never an object, but a state, a frequency you can tune into once the static of desire and expectation fades away. The world doesn't look the same anymore. The familiar places you once avoided no longer hurt. The memories that used to sting now feel like soft echoes, reminders of how deeply you can feel, how capable you are of loving. You see that every heartbreak was never about losing love, but about losing what love is not. Every ending stripped away another layer of illusion, leaving you closer to truth. Love was never the person. It was never the relationship, the texts, the promises. It was the energy that flowed through all of it, the awareness that saw beauty in another and felt awakened by it. And when that form dissolved, the energy didn't die. It simply returned to its source, to you. You begin to realize that every time you said, "I can't live without them," what you really meant was, "I can't live without the version of myself I was when I felt loved." But now, you see that version still lives within you. It was never dependent on them. It was always born from you. Love is not something you lose when someone leaves. It is something you rediscover when all ideas of ownership and need fade away. And this realization brings an unexpected peace. You no longer crave to get love, to hold love, to keep love. You simply are love. You exist as it, quiet, expansive, unafraid. The boundaries between you and them, between love found and love lost, begin to dissolve. Everything that once hurt becomes sacred. Every ending becomes a beginning. Because in the end, you see it clearly now. What died was never love. What died was the idea that love could ever belong to anyone. What you lost was never love. It was the story that tried to contain it. The room is quiet now, but it no longer feels empty. The sweater draped across the chair, the cup on the table, the faint scent of someone who once existed here. None of it carries the weight it once did. The illusions have fallen away, and with them, the suffering tied to them. What remains is a subtle, profound presence, the gentle awareness that love was never truly something to hold, and that its essence has never left. This is the space where real healing begins, where the wisdom of loss transforms into the clarity of understanding. In modern life, we chase love as if it were a commodity, something to be earned, possessed, or kept at all costs. We measure our worth by who loves us, by who stays, by who leaves. But now you see that this is an inversion of truth. Love is not something outside of us. It is a reflection of our capacity to see, to feel, to exist fully in the world. It does not depend on another's presence, and it does not disappear when someone departs. It is a constant, a river flowing beneath the surface of life, moving through every loss, every heartbreak, every silent night of solitude. This awareness changes everything. The relationships you enter now are no longer tests of survival or validation. They are opportunities for connection, for expansion, for reflection. You are no longer seeking to be completed by someone else because you have discovered that completion was never external. It was always within you, waiting to be awakened by clarity and self-awareness. Every interaction becomes a dance, not a contract. Every encounter is a mirror, not of inadequacy, but of shared humanity. You begin to notice the subtle truths in everyday life that you once overlooked. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the quiet rhythm of your breath, the laughter of a friend, the sorrow of a stranger. All of it becomes part of the same awareness. Love is not reserved for romance. It is everywhere. It flows in the small acts of attention and kindness, in the patience you extend to yourself, in the acceptance of impermanence. It exists in the awareness that all beings, all moments, are fleeting yet infinitely precious. In this integration, you also come to understand forgiveness in its deepest form. You forgive not because others deserve it, but because you deserve peace. The mistakes, the betrayals, the departures, they no longer define your capacity to love. You see clearly that holding on to anger or resentment is merely clinging to an idea of love that never truly existed. Letting go is not weakness, it is liberation. And in that liberation, love grows stronger, not smaller. The narrative of love shifts from longing and dependency to understanding and presence. You no longer mourn endings as final, because you have learned that nothing essential is ever truly lost. Every connection, every heartbreak, every joy, every pain, they are all threads woven into the fabric of your consciousness. They teach you who you are, what you value, and how to engage with the world without illusion. The absence of someone becomes a space for self-realization rather than suffering, a chance to meet life without pretense, with eyes open and heart awake. Even memory takes on a new form. You recall the past without bitterness, without regret. The person you lost, the relationship that ended. They are no longer sources of grief. They become teachers, guides, and reminders that love is a state of being, not a possession. The same images that once caused pain now hold a quiet reverence. They whisper the truth that love is eternal, flowing beyond the confines of story, circumstance, or expectation. The wisdom of this realization is subtle but powerful. You start to notice how much of life's suffering comes from trying to cling to illusions, whether of love, control, or identity. And in this moment, you see that letting go does not mean giving up. It means stepping into alignment with reality. You embrace impermanence not as loss, but as freedom. You recognize that life itself is transient, that every person and every experience comes and goes, and that love is the constant thread that weaves through it all. As you move forward, your actions reflect this inner clarity. You approach relationships with honesty, not expectation. You engage with the world with curiosity, not fear. You allow emotions to arise and pass without clinging to them. Your heart is no longer a vessel to be filled by others, but a wellspring of presence and awareness. This is the love that remains when all illusions have fallen away, a love that is quiet, expansive, and unconditional. And finally, you return to the truth that began this journey. The love you thought you lost was never truly in the other person. It was always inside you, waiting to be seen, felt, and expressed. What you experienced was not the loss of love, but the awakening to its true form. Life continues, relationships evolve, moments come and go, but the essence of love remains constant. It is not measured by what is gained or taken, by presence or absence. It is measured by the depth of awareness, the courage to feel fully, and the willingness to embrace the impermanence of everything that moves through your life.